yourself. You've been exploring that project for, how long was it, Scott?
That particular one since 2008.
Yeah, so it's been a while, and overnight success, right? And appreciate you coming here and explaining the Valley Discovery, how you made it, and what the next steps are.
Great,
Thanks so much for coming, Scott.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thanks everybody. Excuse me. So we're Snowline Gold Corp. We're a discovery-focused junior in the Yukon Territory, and we're focused on gold. We're focused on early-stage exploration at this point. Although one of our discoveries, which is actually located in that valley, and it's called the Valley Discovery, has advanced very quickly to the point where we're starting to look down the development corridor on that particular target. But we have a huge land package, almost 4,000 square kilometers, and ultimately, we're happy to be exploring where we're exploring. It's you want to make discoveries. Going to a place that really hasn't been looked at before is a good way to do it, and we're finding really exciting mineralization coming out of the ground. I was asked just to include a little bit on the gold space in general, just to get everybody up to speed. And I'm probably the least qualified person in the room to talk about that, but I did steal some figures from the internet, and actually it is a really interesting trend that's emerging in the gold space, where just over the past couple of years, really, we've seen a decoupling from Western control of price setting, essentially, of the gold markets, where it's not just about what are bonds doing and a strong inverse correlation. That has really decoupled over the past years, and at the same time, gold has been surging. But you see ETFs traditionally, like the U.S. markets and satellite markets, are actually divesting gold heavily. So that we should be in a period of rapid gold price decline based on that metric, but we're seeing appreciation. So there are other buyers coming to the market in a big way. There's the yield and the gold correlation, and then the decoupling, and that happened early 2022 when certain other events took place. And so part of that, the argument out there, which seems to make a lot of sense, is basically the weaponization of the U.S. dollar and the recognition from other players in the global scene that they would need to step away from the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency. And we've seen strong central bank buying. That started as far back as 2008, but that's really been kicked into overdrive with the invasion of Ukraine and the sanctions that came along with it. We're also seeing interesting retail demand coming out of particularly Eastern markets in China, in India, and so. The Western markets really aren't driving the price, and while people are selling in the West, in the East it's buying, and central banks are really seem to be driving that price up, or a component of that. So that's the part of my speech that I'm not at all qualified to talk about, but it's a fun environment to be exploring for gold, and if and when, you see on that last slide. That green line, the mining companies, is actually starting to tick up. And so the high gold prices are starting to hit the balance sheets of major mining companies. And so we're starting to see economic or recognition of that. And so juniors traditionally lag majors. And so that seems to be the space we're in right now, where majors just in the past few months have been starting to tick up as they produce their Q1 results. And I think Q2, if gold prices hold, will be even more compelling. I'm going to quick intro to the Yukon Territory. We got a bit already from Victoria and Banyan, but ultimately it's a tier 1 mining jurisdiction, a strong history of mining in the territory, and a strong history of gold fertility. It's largely unexplored. I mentioned, if you want to make a discovery, go to places where people haven't looked, and that's what we've been doing. You can see we're up in the northwestern corner of North America. Our projects in particular are out in the eastern Yukon there. And what really got us into this particular area in the Yukon is strong correlations to parts of northern Nevada called the Great Basin, where those rocks have turned Nevada essentially into one of the dominant gold-producing jurisdictions on the planet, competitive against countries like China, like Russia, like Canada, just that one state, and just that part of that state, essentially. And there's a line, the old coastline of North America, from about 500 million years ago that used to be right along the equator, and it's since rotated up, and there was a certain set of geological conditions happening in Nevada that are perhaps partially responsible for the gold endowment there, and the only other place along that line where it happened is in the Selwyn Basin in the Yukon, where we're exploring. So we're basically looking at very Nevada-like rocks, but instead of having been poured over for hundreds of years, these are relatively unexplored to completely unexplored. And as Kai mentioned, my own association with Snowline and these projects goes back a long way. That's me in the top left, exploring for gold. My father's a prospector, and he dragged my brother and I out into the bush as young kids. And so we're a company founded on a strong tradition of child labor, but we've come a long way. And yeah, you see that rifle. I just found that photo on the flight over, actually, and threw it into the presentation. That's the Chipmunk 22 that I used to have. If you're looking for a gun to turn a neutral bear into an angry bear, that's the perfect weapon. So, but we have, we pushed ahead with these projects. We staked and optioned out a lot of ground, more than 1% of the entire surface area of the Yukon Territory. And through that, we generated huge data sets. And so ultimately, we couldn't find anyone to buy our projects, but we were excited enough about the projects themselves that we launched a company, and that's how Snowline came to be about 3 years ago. So this is zoomed into that eastern part of the Yukon Territory. We're in a unique situation here in that we have made a substantial discovery, but we also have this huge land position where we have a lot of targets. And the type of discovery we've made, it's the same sort of system that Tara at Victoria, or at Banyan, and John at Victoria Gold are searching for. These reduced intrusion-related gold systems, or Fort Knox-style gold systems. And they tend to occur in clusters, as you see in that camp over there. We have basically the entire cluster staked, as well as some very intriguing rocks in the vicinity. So we have the foundation of a developer, but we also have the upside of an explorer, and we're hitting both of those aggressively this year. And just to give you an example, this outcrop in the creek, you can see those quartz veins. Those are all very rich with gold. This instance had never been staked before, had never been described before. We think this could be a globally significant gold asset, and it's sticking out of the ground, never before staked or even rock sampled. So, and we're finding more and more things that look like this as we explore regionally. So it's a really exciting place to be looking, where we don't have to be doing, I mean, we are doing geochemistry, we are doing geophysics, but we're also finding things just sticking out of the ground and not necessarily, relying on targets that are 500 meters or 1,000 meters deep. And so just to fast forward from that outcrop just a couple of years, we put in 28,000 meters of drilling, and it's a busy slide, but basically any of those intervals would be discovery holes, and they're really quite significant. You can see multiple gram per ton intersections over hundreds of meters. Almost all of those are right from surface. The two highlighted in red, to our knowledge, are the best two drill holes ever for gold drilled in the Yukon. One being 553 meters, that's about the height of the CN Tower in Toronto, or 200 meters taller than the Eiffel Tower, at 2.5 grams per ton gold from surface, with the highest grades concentrated near the top part of the hole. And further context for those drill holes, this is just stacking some of the holes and actually cutting them off at 400 meters, just looking at what's out there in terms of globally, in terms of open pit, near surface, open pittable kind of near surface bulk tonnage gold deposits worldwide, and that are in the exploration phase. And so just stacking those drill results up against what else is out there. And there was some conversation earlier about Rupert resources, and you can see we were very excited when we put this chart together just to be on that list with Rupert, and we've since basically pushed out almost every other deposit or exploration story out there with the results coming out of our Valley target. Just a quick video to give you a sense of the three-dimensional picture here. The prospect itself is located in a valley bottom, as I showed, and you can see that very high grade near surface, like greater than 2 grams per ton, with a high degree of continuity system. And so you don't really have to be a mining engineer here to start to envision how you'd mine this, basically open pit into those high grades. And that's a very unique thing to find. The scale is there to hold a lot of gold mineralization. We don't have a resource wrapped around it yet, but that's something that we're pushing quite aggressively towards. And you can see the amount of visible gold as we drill this mineralization. A lot of gold systems, you don't even see the gold, and you really have to wait until you get the assays back, and it's not consistent. We see it all over, and really it's almost more like drilling a zinc project or something like that, where you drill the drill core, you look at it, and you can tell what's there right away, just because you see all those quartz veins, you see the visible gold coming out. So it's really an exciting project just to be working on right in the ground as well. And so just, I don't want to beat up the point too much, but this is a really interesting type of gold deposit. And John just echoed some of his points there. Basically the flagship example of this type of mineralization is called the Fort Knox mine in Alaska. If you look at past production and its reserves, it's about 11 million ounces. But it's less than a gram. And you see that You see that kind of throughout this belt from central Alaska into the Yukon, and these deposits were generally thought to be low grade, but they work because of the scale, they work because they have great metallurgy, you can get the gold out of these rocks, and they work because they have a high degree of continuity. It's not that smearing that Neil Adshead was talking about earlier. Generally, when you get into this mineralization, you stay in it for as you pass through the system. And that has benefits of the exploration stage and it has benefits of the mining stage as well. And so we're seeing that sort of mineralization at Valley, but we're seeing grades that are essentially multiples of what's typically seen in these systems. So it's a really exciting place to be. And just for reference there, Fort Knox putting significant production on the table year after year since the mid-1990s, including through bottoms. And so while I'm cautiously optimistic about where the price of gold is going based on recent events, looking at just where it's been and what these systems can do, even at substantially lower grades than what we're finding, it's an exciting system to go into. And so ultimately, if it's clear sailing from here, if it's up from here, if it's down from here, we think we have a very compelling discovery on a global scale. Again, this is just a view of that cross-section. Sharpie engineering, essentially. You can save a lot of money on a fancy degree with this system. But ultimately, I put this on here just to highlight that the geometry of what we're finding, and that you basically have a zone, a starter pit, if you want to call it, or a starter mine, where you're just mining multiple gram per ton material for a long time with great continuity. You can see those assay tags in that hole laid out on the left. Basically not a single assay below a gram per ton. I think there's one in there somewhere, but you have to sift through it. And very few below 2, but very few high-grade assays as well, and that's important. It's not smeared mineralization. That average really is essentially the average. It's just consistently, you can see those pink tags are greater than 5 grams per ton gold, which is quite a high value, and you just get pink tag after pink tag throughout that interval. And really stepping out, that initial pit is not the whole picture. Even the peripheral things, while they look low grade in comparison, they're actually quite high grade for this kind of a system still. You're still hitting intervals of more than a half kilometer at over a gram per ton. So when these are sub-gram deposits, you're still very much in interesting mineralization, and we're chasing those open edges of the system. Just a more Eurocentric reference there, just for some scale. So next time you're in Paris, just take a look at the Eiffel Tower, and you can basically see our drill results right next to it. We have a strong treasury. We have about 74 million in the bank right now, so we're well financed to go and progress the Valley discovery, but also to go and try to make more of them. And we have a strong insider and management ownership position, as well as a strategic investment from B2 Gold, which management has voting rights on. So we essentially have a controlling block of the company when it does come to the M&A situation. And obviously, a target like Valley is something that will likely end up on a lot of different radars if it's not already there. We're happy to have seen institutional interest pick up. This has been a very fast story. We drilled our first holes. We just formed the company 3 years ago, and just drilled our first holes into Valley just at the end of 2021. So things have evolved rapidly, but in the last year, we've kind of gotten onto the institutional circuit. But prior to that, CDF was one of the groups that recognized what we were doing and came in as very early investors. We have a strong team out there. Really what we've done in the past few years is phenomenal, and obviously we couldn't have done that without them. So while it started out as sort of a mom and pop, or even just a pop operation, we've matured into a formidable company and some very sharp people doing a lot of very good work. And we hold ourselves to a very high standard. I'm born and raised in the Yukon. Part of why I kept going in exploration in the Yukon is because I love being out in the bush. I love the Yukon's wilderness. We're basically the size of France, but with 40,000 people. It's important to me that we leave a good legacy, and mining can be done very well and it can be done very poorly. And it's important that we push ahead to do things in the right way. The solar panels on the left are an example of the culture that we're building for ourselves, and we leased those through from the local First Nation, the Nation-Naik-Dun. That's the same First Nation that Tara and John both deal with. We're located in that Nation-Naik-Dun traditional territory. This was a first of its kind renewable energy initiative. They've since launched a subsidiary based on the success of this project, where they've gone on to larger green energy projects. So we're really happy to have been a part and continue to be a part of their growth in that direction. And I've mentioned a few times the prospectivity. So there's in the top left, that's that Valley Discovery outcrop. We found 5 more of these systems poking out of the ground last summer alone. That complements several other targets that we already had on the radar. You can see at our Sydney target, very similar mineralization, different setting up higher in the mountains, but still that multi-vein, high vein density outcrop. And so again, we're just finding things sticking out of the ground, and we have a lot of ground left to explore. We're pretty keen to get back out there. This year is going to be big, and basically several dozen targets to get to. We've prioritized them and ranked them, and we'll be drilling 4 or 5 additional targets in addition to Valley. And so just really quickly, where we are now, why invest in Snowline at this point? For one, I've been told by people that they missed it since we were trading at 50 cents, and I still hear that today. But it's nice actually getting out into some other markets and talking to Australians. And instead of we missed it, the response is across the board, how is this so cheap? And so if you look at our, we're just kicking off our exploration program. And if you look at our share price over the past few years, and this continues back into 2021, it's almost a step function. We kick off our exploration, results start coming in. People remember that we're there. And so we're just getting that into that zone again now. We're also pushing towards an initial resource at Valley and expanding out what we already know to be there. So that goes hand in hand with the exploration results. But also, if we hit on another discovery out there, then we're really talking about stacking those exploration discovery curves. And finally, the gold price. If it does, if we do start to see that pick up in the junior space that's already hitting the majors, which historically is a pretty strong correlation, then we're ideally situated to take advantage of that, particularly if we can progress on our other goals. So thank you very much, and if there are time for questions, I'll take them.
Well done, sir. Well done. I think we have time for one question. One quick one if we have it. Well? Let me just repeat it real quick. Do you have any issues with legislation or infrastructure on site?
No issues with legislation. I mean, of course, we need to get permits, so that's one thing that we're looking down. And infrastructure, it is remote, and that's part of why we have the opportunity, but it's not inaccessible. There's a winter trail that comes to about 30 kilometers from Valley, very straight shot over to that winter trail. And ultimately, we think that with that high-grade near-surface component of the thing that we can easily overcome those hurdles. But formal economic studies have yet to be done.
Bears in the area?
There are a few. Anywhere in the Yukon, you're going to run into bears.
Phenomenal. Scott, thank you so much. You're, of course, available as well, and you brought Stephanie with you as well, and you're available for questions and answers upstairs.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Scott.